A few weeks ago before Evo, I put together a tier list and gave my thoughts on who's the best characters and who's the worst characters. And it looks something like this. My top tier was Kail, Jury, Ken, Luke, and JP. But after Evo, I changed my mind on a few things. So let's do a post-Evo tier list. This was my tier list over here. So let's go through it. Let's reorganize and see if I change my mind on some of these things. I want to start from the bottom up. Zangief is staying down there. Zangief is horrible. Like, the fact that I realize that Jamie beats Zangief, it just shouldn't be that way. Like, this archetype should lose to a character like that. And if that's the case, it's just bad. Just real bad. With that being said, he is the epitome of what I talk about with, like, sharp edges and such. He might have so many bad things about him, but he's always one command grab away from starting his game plan and getting in there. But unfortunately, it takes a while for him to start his game plan. So I gotta keep him at the bottom. Lily, the same thing. She's just so one-dimensional. Everything is just based upon getting her win stack, going in, and making you guess 50-50. And if you look, the command grab characters are all at the bottom for a reason. They're just linear. There's just... You can stop them from starting their game plan. And if you can stop someone from starting their game plan, they can't be top tier. I'll talk about both Lily and Manon at the same time because they're command grab characters. They're very linear. Their whole goal is to get close to you and make you guess. The issue is that there's just so many ways to stop them from starting. So if they use like a medium button into drive rush, for the most part, if you have an invincible DP, you could just blow right through it. Drive reversal exists. So once you see the drive rush come in, just drive reversal and then you're good to go. Manon's perk is that she can play a good poke game, but like the conversions that she gets off of her pokes are just not great. And Lily has to touch you too many times. It's just, you get a hit, it takes 20%. I mean, I get one hit with Ken, you're in the corner, I took 30%, you gotta guess for another 30%. It's just, it's too many interactions to actually win. So with that being said, these characters are staying right where they are. And if you like this video so far, make sure to like and subscribe.
Or whatever.
I'm gonna move Kimberly over at the beginning of B tier. This is where I'm going to start to shake things up in the B tier. I think everyone else here is really good, and as I start to understand the game more, I see where their deficits are, but Kimberly just won a major. And in my last video, I did say Kimberly has the game plan to win, and she can start her game plan better, almost better than anyone else in B tier, and she's very potent. Honda's still Honda. I mean, he can still dictate the pace of the match, but people are getting better at perfect parrying. People are getting better at DPing the headbutt. People are not falling for headbutt baits. Butt slam is getting punished. It's just, the more we understand about the game, Honda starts falling a bit. Ryu is still okay. Like, I think he's good. Problem is that these characters all exist. So because those characters exist, we looked at Ryu in the demo. We went, whoa, this character is really good. We looked at him in the beta. He's doing damage. But like, once you add Marisa, JP, and all these characters in, you start seeing where Ryu is lacking. Ryu doesn't lack damage. He does a lot of damage, but like, he has to give up Oki to get his Denjin buff, and he can't choose whether or not he wants to use the Denjin Hadouken or not. If he could choose, like I saw a suggestion on Twitter saying, make his Denjin Hadouken quarter circle forward heavy punch only, and the rest of them remain to be his regular fireballs. That way we can store the Hadouken and choose whether or not we want to use it. He gives up Oki to get the charge, and the charge could go to waste because people could just jump over it or parry it or just blow through it. So he loses a lot of value just because it's very easy for his Denjin stack to go to waste. I think Jamie, low-key, is really good and kind of slept on. He's 1 or 2 buffs away from being really good. Jamie starts his damage scaling off at the beginning of the round at 90%, so realistically he gets nerfed at the start of the game. And the character doesn't really become a character until he gets drink level 2. Now, I'm not going to downplay him. It's not that hard to get your drinks, guys. Like, let's stop capping. You can get drinks with Jamie. But like Ryu, he gives up Oki to get his drinks off of his kick Rekka ender. So that sucks. However, you can use EX Rekka and get plus frames off of that, which is kind of nice. When his drink level is 3 or 4, especially 4, he starts to get really good damage and really good conversions. But I think some of his moves need to get scaled down to earlier drink levels. And maybe he doesn't need to start off at 90% damage scaling. I just think that's kind of goofy. Dhalsim is a character that still has untapped potential. I think the character definitely can move up. He has a lot of creativity. There's a lot of ways to outplay your opponent. But the problem with Dhalsim right now is, in my point of view, there's just not a lot of Dhalsim players. Dhalsim kind of suffers from the jury complex, right? It's like, it's a character specialist character. Like, you need to give everything to the character to find everything about him and to find the cheap stuff with him. But I just don't see a lot of Dhalsims doing much, to be honest with you. With that being said, I definitely think there's a lot of sauce to the character. Just at the current time, I got to keep him at B tier. Now, let's talk the S and the A tier. So this is where the fiery, hot, molten lava takes are going to start happening. I want to work my way from the top of S tier down to the bottom of A tier. And I haven't thought about some of the characters, so we're going to think about this on the fly. I just got to say right now, I was wrong about the best character in the game. That's Ken. Like, unequivocally, it's not because Angry Bird won Evo. It's just the more we find out about Ken, the more craziness he has. He's just a super solid character. There's no weak points in his game plan. He's just really good. He can convert really well off of everything. His run allows him a lot of flexibility. His Dragon Lash can force plus frames, and not a lot of characters have moves that force plus frames, especially like non-command grab characters. He has a great cancelable low forward, has a jab to medium combo. I think it's like a standing light punch, standing medium punch, something along those lines. Like, he can combo off of a jab. So other characters can do that, like Jury can do it, but it's not very prominent in her game plan. This character went from being like, he's not that great in the beta to like, this is actually the Street Fighter 6 character. I did say in my last video, I had a really hot take, and I said Jamie was part of the top 5. But I don't think it's really crazy to say this now, but I told y'all the character had a lot of sauce, and the character is only going to be explored more, and that we're going to enter a JP meta. And guess what? We are there. I said Kail was the best character in the game and only lost to JP. And honestly, I don't think JP loses to anyone. Yeah, I know. Throw a meaty fireball, yada, yada, yada. I know you could bait amnesia, yada, yada, yada. But you got to understand, this character gets to pick and choose the flow of the match completely. On top of it, there's no range where he's bad. He's got disjointed hitboxes in the mid-range. From far away, he can zone you. And up close, you have to respect him. You have to respect the amnesia. The problem with talking about amnesia is that you have to get through this force field of people going, oh, you just don't know, or just do this, lol. But you got to understand, good JPs are going to have counterplay to the counterplay. And the counterplay to the counterplay is going to catch you off guard, take away 40% of your health, put you on the other side of the screen, and it's going to tilt you. And can we talk about Departure? Departure is so freaking good. The fact that you could be full screen, he puts a little tear, and then the shard will come down, and your goal is to try to parry it so you don't lose drive gauge. So he baits you into trying to parry, he teleports and command grabs you and takes away your drive gauge either way. This character is just really good. It's such a free-form character with such a strong base. So here you are trying to work around it, and he's able to be creative and find ways around you trying to get around him. You have to have anti-JP strats. You just have to. Like, when I talk about a character being meta, you have to have a character or a game plan that fights Ken. You have to have a character or a game plan that fights JP. I have a hard time with the next few. Now, I think Luke drops a bit, and I think Jury drops a bit. I don't think Kail falls off completely, so I'm very comfortable with keeping Kail here. I might move Jamie and Luke down a bit. Kail fights in Burnout really well. He really isn't affected by it much because most of the time you really can't get in on him to punish him for being in Burnout, and he gets to stall really well while he's in Burnout. He's got amazing pokes. His upside down kick is a low crush while having like a really good hitbox on top of it. He's got Sonic Break. His flash kick is really good for checking drive rushes. Just a good character all around. He doesn't feel like a Street Fighter 6 character, but I think that's like the perk of him. He plays his own game, and if you can't find a way around his sonic booms, then it's kind of chalked, right? I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to make the call. I'm going to bring Jury down to A tier. And I'm going to say this with the caveat that I think Jury is still an S tier character. But at the current time, with the level of play that we're at, I think this character is the very top of A tier. Her drive rush is really good. She could chase her fireballs. Her fireballs still will give her plus frames if you space it out right. Her buttons are excellent. Her DP is great. Feng Shui engine is super undiscovered. The fact that she can use her stores in replacement to her drive gauge is just really good. There's so many perks to this character, but right now she's just not showing where she should be. other than Nephew, what jury is really popping off out there? I know Kills You is doing great things. Jack is still doing great things. Mago is doing well. PR Rog is doing well, but none of them are just jumping off the page. Like when you think like top Street Fighter 6 players, I'm not thinking of a jury player. And that's a shame because I really think this character has everything that you need to be a top tier character, but they're just not showing that promise. And this is a call to arms. Part of it, in my point of view, is that top jury players aren't talking to each other. Maybe they are. Maybe I'm just not part of the conversations. That's absolutely a possibility. I'm not part of the top tier jury crew. But from what I see, it's just a lot of protagonists trying to be the main character. And if we all talk together, or if they all talk together, even if I take myself out of it, I think there's so much information that's just not being shared. But once Feng Shui Engine starts to get discovered more, she's going to come up easily. But for now, I will keep her in A tier. Luke. Luke is falling off. Luke is falling off, but it's only because Ken just does everything Luke wants to do, but just better. I kind of feel like that shouldn't be an indication of strength. Like, if both of these characters were top tier, and they both did the same thing, there definitely is room for them to be 1 and 2, but that just doesn't feel like the situation. Luke does great damage. Luke's corner carry is great. His level 1 is amazing. His level 3 actually does a surprising amount of damage. I don't know why it feels like it does so much damage. His bread and butters just do a lot of damage. He's just a good character. Sandblast is a great way to bait meter. Like, you think he's gonna throw a hard one, and then he does a light one, and then you do a parry, you don't get your meter back. Like, there's a lot of things about him that's good. It's just not popping. He's just not popping off the way he was at the start of the game. Rashid is still an unknown. I still feel like there is a lot of potential with this character, but I think that's a lot of potential that people are just not willing to dive into. And it might be because I haven't seen it, but this character still is just... If I had more time, I would put more time into Rashid. I have a lot of fun playing him. I know there's cheap stuff about him. I just haven't had time to look at it for myself. And there hasn't been a pro player that has made me look at Rashid differently. So I'm going to keep him in A tier, but his value is starting to drop. Because I kind of feel like everyone who would pick up Rashid is playing Ken. I have a very strict view of what S tier is. And I have a hard time putting Cammy in the top tier. And the reason with that is I don't think she's on the same level as these three here. In fact, I don't think Luke is on the level of those three. I'm going to bring Luke down. And I want to keep Cammy here. I do think Cammy is a better character than Luke. Most definitely. She just feels like the Karine of Street Fighter 6 because her game plan is just solid, it's straightforward, and it's just good and potent. I feel like Ken, Cammy, and Juri are probably fighting to do the same thing. I think Cammy's doing it better and easier. Now I'm thinking about what other characters I want to put in S tier and how they relate, but I really can't. Maurice is a character whose game plan is counterable, but if you mess up once, she makes up for all of her mistakes. I'm putting Marisa in S tier. But the thing about her is that she can overcome any matchup as long as she gets a hit. You can keep her out for 85% of the match. All she needs is the 15%. She can overcome almost any bad matchup with her damage. And she's just like overtuned character. I think there's no reason this character should be doing that much damage. But she does, so I have to put her in the top tier. I just have to. And if anyone is concerned, like, oh, you're downplaying Juri. I mean, I think Maurice is a better character than Juri. I'm just going to keep it a buck. The number one comment that I have on anything about Feng Shui Engine on my channel, any of my shorts, I'll show these cool combos and everyone will always write, lol, you did all of that for Marisa to do 3 buttons. I mean, they're kind of right. Like, think about it. Her Gladius beats DI, and Gladius is a move that when you see it, you naturally go, I need to DI that. DJ is a character I want to put in the top tier, but I still don't see the top tier value. I think DJ is probably the top of A tier, though. DJs have been really consistent. Character has great pokes. The only problem is that they're DI-able, right? Like, he doesn't have a lot of like pokes that are cancelable. He has great damage. His mix-up, even though it's linear, his sway just opens up so many opportunities for counterplay with the character. Great DR. His low medium kick is really good. His up kicks is good as a way to beat out DR. Great anti-air. And just, again, his sways are just good. His feints with his fireballs are good. His character just has everything, and it's just even more consistent than Luke. Like, I gotta say it. Blanca's a hard one to place because we all saw Mena RD get to grand finals, and he did awesome things with Blanca. But it's hard to separate the player from the character in this case. Blanca has pretty good buttons. He's got ways to go into level 2. His level 2 is amazing. His Blanca Ball obviously is annoying to deal with. It's kind of like Honda Headbutt that you have to parry it. His Rainbow roll can be a little bit weird. He's got game closing mix-up when it comes to his command grab. I mean, it's not great, but I mean, if you leave it for the last Jenkin of the match, it can really show some benefit. Blanca Chan is just really good, although not as oppressive as I thought it would be. I never thought I'd say this, but like Blanca is just a really, really solid character. I want to put Blanca in the top tier, but I have a problem having 6 people in the top tier. Do I want to bring Cammy down for Blanca? I just don't see Blanca on the same tier as Marisa, as Cammy, as Kail. We can only hope that Wolfgang will show some really cheap Tekken. He'll move up to the top 3, and we'll all hate Blanca even more than we usually do. Chun-Li. I'm going to keep Chun-Li exactly where she is. This character is good. We saw Haitani play her as modern Chun-Li, and his game plan was to use air legs. And he did a really good job of it. And even though he used modern to get the air legs to come out 100% of the time, that doesn't mean that classic players can't do that. So this character is good. I will keep her where she is because compared to everyone else, I think that's a good place for her. Her pokes are excellent. Her fireball is great. Using Serenity Stream for mix-up is a little gimmicky, but it's still pretty good. Her staircase kick, whatever it's called, the flip-over kick, I've seen people use that with like good results. Drive rushing that has been cool. The character has the Tensho kicks for her DP, but compared to everyone else at the current time, I can't give her the nod over Rashid, Jury, Luke, Blanca, and DJ. So how do I feel about this? Well, I feel like Luke might be a little bit too low. So maybe I put Luke here. Do I think Blanca is better than Jury? I don't. Right? I actually don't. Blanca's really good, but Jury legitimately is an all-rounder with like conditional spikes. And I think she's really untapped. It's hard for me to say that. I still think Luke is better than Jury. I think DJ is better than Luke. You know what? I think Jury stock is dropping, but I still think she is top tier. Right? I still have her in the top tier. And once I put Jury there, this makes a little bit more sense. I think these 3 characters can all be the top of A. I think Jury is better than them. And I'm going completely based on the fact that there's just so much untapped potential that people just aren't using under Feng Shui Engine. And again, I said this in the last video, we're 1 month away from someone breaking Feng Shui Engine. Wonder who that will be. So I think that looks good. I think we have a solid top tier. I usually don't like to have 6 people in the top tier because S tier is like meta defining. But Jury actually fights a lot of these characters pretty well, right? So like, I don't think she does too well against Luke. I think she fights JP decently, but JP can outplay. I think she loses to Kail. I think that's like her worst matchup. I think she fights Cammy pretty well. I think she fights Marisa pretty well, right? So I don't think Jury has many bad matchups, and I still think her spikes are undetermined. With that being said, Marisa doesn't have a bad matchup. Like, I would even be thinking to swap these 2 here, but at the current time, I'm going to keep it as is because I think Cammy just all around is just a really, really solid character. And we see Punk having great results with her, so I mean, we can't deny that. And I think that's where we're going to land. I think in a few months, we're going to see Rashid move up a bit. I think in a few months, we're probably going to see Blanca either stay the same or drop a bit. I think Luke is going to be on the decline. I think DJ will probably stay up. I think Kimberly has a lot of room to move up. Jamie has a lot of room to move up. Dhalsim has a lot of room to move up. And I wish these characters would move up, but I'm also thankful that they're not.